U.S. Supreme Court blocks Biden administration policy to limit deportation. Uniform keeps a Muslim wrestler out of Pan American Championships. International condemnation after Burma executes activists. Pope Francis says he is deeply sorry to Canadian residential school survivors. Pakistan slams Indian Defense Minister's statement on Kashmir. Terminal 5's Muslim stand-up comics take to the stage in St. Louis. From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. On Thursday, the U.S. Supreme Court temporarily blocked a Biden administration immigration policy. In a 5-4 order, the court denied the administration's application to reinstate an immigration memorandum that would stop deportation unless the non-citizen is a threat to national security, public safety, or border security. Justices Amy Coney Barrett, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented from the majority. Texas and Louisiana brought a lawsuit challenging the memorandum. It led to Judge Drew Tipton of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas vacating the memorandum in June. Then the Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit denied the Biden administration's request for a stay pending appeal. The U.S. House Select Committee investigating the January 6 Capitol riot presented new evidence that former President Donald Trump did not want to concede the 2020 election, even after his supporters stormed Congress. ABC News' Jonathan Karl on Monday noted handwritten edits Trump made to the speech he delivered on January 7, 2021, condemning the violence. Trump crossed out parts of the speech holding rioters criminally liable for breaking into the building and physically assaulting Capitol Police. Trump also edited a sentence that read, "If you broke the law, you belong in jail," to read, "If you broke the law, you will pay." In the final version of the speech, Trump made no mention of prosecuting rioters. A federal jury has convicted Steve Bannon of 2 counts of contempt of Congress for failing to comply with a subpoena from the January 6 House Committee. The case is in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Bannon was chief strategist and counselor to former President Donald Trump for about 7 months in 2017. The House Committee subpoenaed Bannon on September 23rd, seeking information relevant to understanding the January 6 U.S. Capitol attack. Bannon was required to appear and produce documents before the committee, but he refused to comply with the subpoena's mandates. Each count carries a minimum of 30 days and a maximum of 1 year in jail. On July 30th, comedian Adil Qaiser at the Terminal 5 Comedy Tour will bring a diverse set of comics and backgrounds to the stage in St. Louis. Earlier this year, Qaiser opened for former Patriot Act host and comedian Hassan Minhaj. Along with Qaiser, the Terminal 5 tour brings 6 Muslim comics to the High-Low Literary Arts Cafe. Qaiser said the group's name is inspired by a real-life airport terminal at Chicago O'Hare's International Airport. Qaiser and the rest of the Terminal 5 group were born outside the U.S. Members come from different countries and heritages, including Syrian, Palestinian, and Saudi Arabian. Latifah McBride earned a spot to represent the United States at the Pan American Women's Wrestling Championships in Mexico earlier this month. But the international governing body for wrestling ruled she could compete only if she wore the form-fitting singlet. The 17-year-old Buffalo resident declined and gave up her spot on the team. McBride, who is Muslim, observes hijab, wearing a headscarf and loose clothing. She said she won't wear just a singlet, a skin-tight leotard-type garment that leaves the arms, legs, shoulders, and neck exposed. On Thursday, the U.S. thanked Turkey for its efforts to help Ukraine and Russia reach a deal to secure grain exports from the Eastern European nation. U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price lauded UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his hard work in securing the deal. The pact is slated to be signed Friday in Istanbul, Turkish officials said. The country's communications directorate said Guterres and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will sign the deal at Dolmabahce presidential office. Tons of Ukrainian grain are stuck in Black Sea ports due to a blockade imposed by Russia during its now 5-month war. The conflict has caused global grain shortages and price hikes. Burma's military-led government has executed 4 pro-democracy activists. Details after the break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Assalamu alaikum! Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
It's Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. Burma's military-led government said it has executed 4 pro-democracy activists, sparking international condemnation. They are the country's first executions in decades. Burma's military said the executed men had helped carry out brutal and inhumane terror acts, the Global New Light of Myanmar newspaper reports. It did not specify how the 4 men had been killed. On Monday, the U.S. Embassy in the city of Yangon said activist Kyaw Min-yu, former legislator Phyo Zia-taw, as well as protesters Hla Myo-ong and Ong Thurazar were executed for exercising their fundamental freedoms. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken denounced the executions as reprehensible. Blinken said the killings would not hinder the movement for democracy. Pope Francis asked Indigenous residential school survivors for forgiveness this week in his first public remarks in Canada. The pontiff said he is deeply sorry while standing on the grounds of a former residential school in Maskwakis near Edmonton. Can we do that again? I'm sorry. Maskwakis. The pontiff said he is deeply sorry while standing on the grounds of a former residential school in Maskwakis near Edmonton. He said his apology is a first step and that a serious investigation into abuses must occur to foster healing. The Pope is in Canada to apologize for the Church's role in schools meant to assimilate Indigenous children. More than 3,000 students are believed to have died at the schools. The government-funded institutions were part of a policy meant to destroy Indigenous cultures and languages. The papal apology was met with applause from survivors in the audience, of whom some traveled far to hear the Pope speak. Muslim women whose resumes include photos wearing hijab are less likely to get called for a job interview in the Netherlands and Germany, new research has found. The article, published in the European Sociological Review Journal, notes discrimination generally occurred when the job required face-to-face dealings with clients and customers. In Spain, the level of discrimination against veiled Muslim women is less than in the other 2 countries, the research shows. In the Netherlands, nearly 70% of job applications that included a photograph of an unveiled woman received positive callbacks for jobs requiring high customer contact. For applications with photographs of hijabi women, the positive response rate was 35%. On Monday, Somalia's parliament gave Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Barre 10 more days to form a government. Barre has already missed the original 30-day deadline. He was appointed by President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in early June after he received a vote of confidence from all 220 members of parliament. Omar Balash, a federal lawmaker, told reporters he is hoping the Prime Minister will form his cabinet in the coming days. All 20 previous prime ministers since 1969 in the Horn of Africa nation appointed their cabinet lineups within 30 days after getting House approval. On Monday, Badi met with religious leaders and is in consultation with civil society. Pakistan has condemned the Indian Defence Minister's statement on Pakistan-administered Kashmir, calling it provocative and completely unacceptable. The Foreign Ministry rejected Rajnath Singh's unwarranted comments made at an event in Indian-administered Kashmir. Singh said Pakistan-administered Kashmir is a part of India. The ministry said Singh distorted historical facts about the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. The Pakistani ministry, in response, said provocative statements by Indian political figures cannot alter the reality. The Indian Express daily reported Singh alleged Pakistan has always resorted to anti-India activities and that Jammu and Kashmir had also witnessed terrorist activities in the past. The two countries have fought two wars since 1947 over Kashmir. Kashmiris still demand what was promised to them by the United Nations in 1948 to hold a referendum to decide their future. On Monday, Israeli forces demolished two houses belonging to Palestinians in Hebron City, West Bank. Israel often uses the pretext of lack of construction permits to demolish Palestinian structures, especially in Area C in the occupied West Bank. Under the 1995 Oslo Accords between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, was divided into three portions, areas A, B, and C. Israel prevents Palestinians from carrying out construction projects in parts of the West Bank designated as Area C, which falls under its administrative and security control. Area C is home to 300,000 Palestinians, a majority of whom are Bedouins and herding communities, predominantly living in tents, caravans, and caves. Forcibly displaced civilians in Syria's northwest Idlib province are struggling to survive in makeshift tents in scorching temperatures. The sweltering heat wave, a recent global phenomenon, adversely affects the lives of millions of civilians taking shelter in Idlib after fleeing the war in Syria. The temperature has been rising up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. Living conditions have become unbearable for around 4 million Syrian civilians living there. Families also cannot access electricity in the region and face water shortage as well. The Syrian civil war began in 2011 when the regime of Bashar al-Assad cracked down on pro-democracy protesters. Hundreds of thousands of people have since been killed and millions more displaced, the UN estimates. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Mr. Speaker, if I decide to wear a turban, or you decide to wear a cross, or he decides to wear a kippah or a skull cap, or she decides to wear a hijab or a burqa, does that mean that it is open season for right honourable members of this House to make derogatory and divisive remarks about our appearance? For those of us who from a young age have had to endure and face up to being called names such as Towelhead or Taliban, or coming from Bongo land, we can appreciate full well the hurt and pain felt by already vulnerable Muslim women when they are described as looking like bank robbers and letterboxes. So rather than hide behind sham and whitewash investigations, when will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remarks? Racist remarks, Mr. Speaker, which have led to a spike in hate crime. And given the increasing prevalence of such incidents within his party, when will the Prime Minister finally order an inquiry into Islamophobia within the Conservative Party, something which he and his Chancellor promised on national television?
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3.
okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Welcome back. It's time for our in-depth analysis segment. Let's watch.
53 people, children included, suffocated in San Antonio on the tractor trailer. They didn't have to die like that. In a heated place, probably up to 150, 170 degrees inside, no water. Is this the result of our immigration policies? People are wondering, President Biden is calling a horrific event. But what can be done about it? We have with us Ernesto Castaneda, who's assistant professor at the American University, Washington, D.C., and director of Immigration Lab to discuss this with us. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you very much, Imam.
Tell us, the death of 53 people have put a new spotlight on the immigration issue. Could you help us understand why a tragedy like this happens?
Sure, and it is correct to call it a tragedy. It is a tragedy because it was to be expected. It's something that has happened in the past many times. It's something that we could have predicted. Actually, I predict that it will happen again this summer. We also saw it happening recently in southern Mexico. We saw recent incidents of deaths at the border between Melilla, Spain, and northern Morocco in the northern part of Africa. So this is the result of immigration policies that try to restrict any person trying to come through land borders without a visa. This was made worse by the pandemic, where for good public health reasons, a lot of the borders were further closed, even to border residents. And the case here, even now, asylum seekers could not enter the country while they waited for the courts to present and make their evidence and to make their case of why they were looking for asylum. Remain in Mexico, which the Supreme Court today says that Biden can try to end this within their jurisdiction. And Title 42, which is related to public health, made it hard for people escaping political persecution and violence in Central America and other countries to ask for asylum. So a lot of migrants have been waiting for over a year in terrible conditions in northern Mexico to try to come and present their asylum cases. So some of them have gotten desperate and have again tried to look for the desert and to smuggling options like this trailer truck. And the result is that a lot of lives are lost unnecessarily.
Professor Castaneda, the Supreme Court's decision today Do you think that is going to help the situation?
Not really, not in the short term, but it's, we could say, a step in the right direction. Because once the Biden administration ends the Remain in Mexico program started by Trump, and once Title 42 is lifted, because when the pandemic fully comes under control, then asylum seekers with documents that have suffered horrible suffering at the hands of organized crime or political forces or corrupt policies in their countries will be able to ask for asylum. But we're talking here about a very small portion of immigrants escaping poverty and dictatorship in Cuba, Venezuela, and many other countries, and they won't benefit from the end of Title 42 or Remain in Mexico because they were not subject to. So what this tragedy in San Antonio reminds us is that the Congress has to get back to work on a comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform to regularize people who are already in the U.S., to allow families to reunify through an orderly process, coming through airplanes with visas, and to increase the number of guest workers that our economy so much needs right now.
Texas Governor Abbott says that it's a border security issue. Do you agree with that?
No. Governor Abbott is wrong in a lot of issues, particularly when it comes to immigration. The U.S.-Mexico border on the U.S. side, it's very safe. Actually, some of the Texas cities along the border, like El Paso, Texas, there's a lot of data, studies by myself and statistics from the FBI and many others, show that these American border cities are amongst the safest in the U.S. for the most part. They are, for example, safer than, in terms of homicide rates, they are safer than Washington, D.C. or New York City. And whenever we have massive deaths, they are because of domestic terrorists, like we saw in El Paso, with somebody trying to kill Mexicans, or in Uvalde, school shootings. That's when, that's the few incidents when border cities are unsafe. But for the most part, immigrants don't come with guns. Immigrants don't try to kill people on their way. They're trying to get to their parents, to their children, to their family members in the U.S. and try to get a job or to study. They are not making the border unsafe. So to speak about border security, it's a laggard that we still have from 9/11, when people thought that protecting the national borders would be a way to fend terrorism, but that was overblown, unnecessary, and useless, I would say. But it has resulted in the deaths of a lot of innocent civilians, including children.
You know, I'll read to you one of the argument, which seems to be in line with what Texas governor is saying, is secure borders saves lives. When less people come across, less people are going to die. That's the logic there. What is illogical about that statement?
Well, that's the goal. There's some restrictionist groups, many of them, unfortunately, linked to white supremacy movements, that don't want the racial composition of the U.S. to change. They want to keep it Christian and white. So those are the people that have for a long time poured a lot of money to close the border and reduce immigration. And they're winning. They were in power during the Trump administration, and the Biden administration hasn't been able to pull back a lot of these measures. But taking a step back, let's remember that only 3.5% of the world population, more or less, according to the United Nations, lives in a country different from where they are born. In other words, as Kamala Harris correctly said when she was visiting Central America, most people do not want to leave their homes. Most people want to stay with their parents, with the children, with their grandparents, in the city that they were born, if they can afford it. But we see large movements on people when there's, for example, a foreign invasion, as we see right now with Ukraine, with the Russian invasion. People have been leaving Ukraine to try to save their lives. Nobody is criticizing them, rightly so. Also, people after the takeover of the Taliban, some people that were working with the U.S. government have been given welcoming in the U.S. from Afghanistan, and that is to their benefit, so they can continue their style of life, and they're going to contribute a lot to the United States. So it's the same with the people that found on the border. Is actually not that many people. Remaining Mexico so far had deported 70,000 people to Mexico, with the idea that many of them would be little by little led to coming to the US to present their asylum cases, as some of them would stay. Now remember, a lot of people that come to the US and apply for asylum, most of them are rejected, and they are sent back through airplanes. They are deported back to their countries. So we're talking about tens of thousands of people. At a time when we lost over 1 million Americans due to COVID, at a time when unemployment is around 3%, and we're talking about a US population of over 330, 350 million people, this is really a drop in the bucket. They're not coming to anybody's house. They're coming to a country that has for centuries received people from all over the world. So it's not about immigrants not coming. It's about letting immigrants come and trying to find a job and trying to have contribute to the economy. If they're committing crimes, they can be put in prison or deported. So it's not an issue about border security. They're trying to militarize our borders. That's what causes deaths. And we also see the same case with the Mediterranean in Europe and in other countries. So having a migration that is more open and that gives more visas, asylum more easily, refuge more easily, is a better way to handle. Have done that very well with Ukrainians and Afghans in the last year. So it's not impossible.
Professor Castaneda, I remember being in the White House in 2008 with President Obama's in office, and that was his top priority. What is happening to this comprehensive immigration reform? I mean, there seems to be just pass on to next president, to next president, to next president. Do you see any hope that this tragedy will help bring this issue so much in focus that somebody will make a serious effort to resolve it?
I really hope so. And the recent bipartisan agreement on gun control gives us some hope that people can come together to do something about this. There is a consensus that the immigration system as it is right now, it's broken. People have been saying that for a long time. Independents, Republicans, Democrats. Public opinion shows that over 70% of the US population is in favor of amnesty, in favor of giving citizenship to DACA recipients, of creating a better and more humane and more rational immigration system. Unfortunately, it's been a couple of senators and the Republicans in Congress that have been blocking year after year after year. Even when Bush was in office and he was trying to do an immigration reform, they are afraid that if they vote for more pro-immigrant policies, that they're going to be made to pay by their voters. But that has not been the case, actually. If you look back, people that have taken pro-immigrant stance actually have not paid the price. The Muslim ban was finally rescinded. Nobody's angry with Biden for that. The border wall construction is stopped beyond the core base of the Trump candidacy. Nobody else is upset about that. So there's a lot that can be done, that there's agreement in American society. So we have to have the political will and pressure Congress so that they come with a bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform that is proactive, that brings paths to citizenship, safe guest worker programs, and not more money for the Border Patrol, no more money for fences. That money is wasted money that is not working to, and it's not deterring immigrants from coming. It's just casting some of them to die on the way.
Thank you so much, Professor Castaneda, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.